What's going on, everybody? This is a new location for Mondays with Vish. It feels weird saying my name in the middle of a title for a show, but that's where we're at. Just a quick disclaimer with it. This is temporary. This is a one show thing. I just wanted to get Grant on and do one show from my channel. Mondays with Vish will resume on the Grant Cohn channel with
And
everybody's
real quick, if you don't subscribe to Vish's channel already, subscribe to Vish's channel right now because he puts out great content all the time, not just with me. There's going to be some special guests on his channel this weekend that are not me. Subscribe.
Right. We got Eric Crocker coming on, and of course my buddy Blake, who's awesome and does great work. So we're going to be live too. Thank you so much for that shout out. Obviously, you know what it is. It's me, Vish Kumaran. It's everybody's favorite beat writer, Sports Illustrated's own Grant Cohn. Before we started, part of the reason I wanted to host today's show is because I wanted to give Grant a shout out. If you guys all saw, Grant posted a video on Twitter where he talked about his journey for the past year, and he's gone through a couple of things, and the fact that he was able to make it out with this SI gig and finally go get his car and all of that. So first, Grant, congratulations for purchasing your car. And second, something Grant was unable to mention during that time, and I think that I wanted to mention it, was that the amount of work he's done for other people and helping other people benefit from his platform, which he's shared and allowed other people to come and speak and give their opinions and their takes. And I'm one of those people who has benefited from that standpoint. So I wanted to shout out Grant from there. We're all very thankful for the things that you've done for us, and we really appreciate you. And one last thing, and the thing I wanted to drive home, and the real reason I'm proud that I get to do shows with Grant and stuff, is that I think that with discourse, I think that often most people are not open to hearing another difference of opinion. And to me, the best quality about Grant, and I think the quality that everybody should drive home about Grant, is regardless of anything that he says that you disagree with, Grant is open for you to disagree with him. I mean, the basis of this show is the fact that I disagree with 95% of Grant's football takes. And Grant, in spite of his stature and in spite of who he is compared to who I am, is open for anyone to disagree with him and anyone to tell him why he's wrong. And I think that's one of the best qualities a person can have. And that's why we should all appreciate Grant, because that's different from the kind of coverage that anybody else gives us.
Thank you. That was really, really nice. If you guys can't tell, I'm extremely proud of Vish. Vish is a superstar. This show that we do together, I think, is as good a show as any show like it in the country. And I think we could go national one day. So I'm honored that I'm on Vish's channel, and this is going to be a channel that's going to have 100,000 subscribers in a few years anyway. So getting on the ground floor, that Vish action.
We really appreciate it. And I saw the tips come in. I appreciate every single one of you. I'm definitely going to hit all the questions on. We have a question section. Since I'm in charge this time, I'm hitting the questions only at the end. So let's get started. So one thing Grant has thrown out, and something everybody's thrown out, is the idea of the Deshaun Watson trade, okay? Everybody's interested in the Deshaun Watson trade. And I think that something you and I actually haven't talked about, but when people ask me, what would you trade for Watson? Often the centerpiece that I suggest is always Javon Kinlaw. And I'm willing to part with him. And it's not because I think people know that I think highly of Javon Kinlaw. I'm higher on his ceiling than Grant is. But my thing with Javon Kinlaw is that he is a defensive tackle. And the Niners are shown they're a good organization when it comes to grooming and developing late round defensive linemen, especially interior defensive linemen. If you saw last year, while Kinlaw was phenomenal, Gibbons played really well. Street was pretty solid. DJ Jones has been excellent whenever he's played for the 49ers.
And that's what they pay Chris Kosarick to do. And he's good at it. Develop those other guys. Yeah.
Right. So I've always felt that the best way for the Niners to go is to trade, maybe have Javon Kinlaw, if possible, be the centerpiece of that trade. So that's where I wanted to start with you, Grant.
Yeah.
Is the value of Javon Kinlaw being undersold as the potential centerpiece to the Deshaun Watson deal?
I don't know if he could be a centerpiece. Like, the way I looked at it today was Peter King had a really interesting proposed. He had like two. One of them was a 7-asset trade. 7 assets of the Niners go to Houston, and 3 players, 4 picks. And the players were Fred Warner, Mike McGlinchey, and Jimmy G. And to me, the centerpiece of that trade would have to be Warner, Kittle, or Bosa. I don't know that Javon Kinlaw qualifies yet because he's still more potential.
Right.
But what I was thinking was McGlinchey, I don't know why he's in this deal. Like this, Peter, what are you talking about? He has no value. The person who has value is the first round pick from 2020, not from 2018. And I was thinking, I don't think this Mike McGlinchey deal would get it done. I think if you put Kinlaw in there, you get further. I think Kinlaw definitely has more value in a trade than McGlinchey. And for the reasons you stated, I would be okay with trading Javon Kinlaw, especially if you could get back something nice for him, because I'm more pessimistic about him. That's a 300-pound man with tendonitis in his knee who just had surgery. I'm worried that if he comes back next year and has the same type of season, now he has no value. I feel like trading him now, you could argue is trading high, while you might argue it's trading low. Either way, he's worth something now. He's worth something now.
Right. So I agree, and 100% with you. Maybe the centerpiece is a little rich. It might have to be, centered around a Fred Warner. But I think the original report was that they want 2 or 3 defensive starters, I think Kinlaw and Warner is done. You don't need an extra defensive starter. I think those two, to me, should be enough, along with the picks to get Deshaun Watson. So
we see you. We're gonna get your question. Don't worry, son.
Yeah, for sure. We'll get there. Just hang on for a second.
Yeah,
we really appreciate it.
Yeah.
But what I did want to mention is I think the thing with Kinlaw, and I think there should be actually more intrigue for Kinlaw, because I think that when you compare to McGlinchey, and you threw out the McGlinchey, and I don't want to get into McGlinchey's value because that's another topic for another day. But what I did want to get into is Javon Kinlaw was just the 14th pick in the draft. He didn't have a bad rookie season at all. He actually had a very solid one. He just didn't have a statistically great one. And, if he played somewhere, if the Niners won 10 games, Javon Kinlaw with the same statistics would have been talked about in a much different fashion. So I did want to point that out. And he had a really solid rookie season. I think the biggest thing with Javon Kinlaw has never been he's going to be day one a superstar. It's always been the fact that he's a 6'6", 325-pound man that moves like a 270-pound man. He moves differently for a guy his size.
And any team that gave him a good draft grade should still like him. I mean, it's not like he did anything this year to change anyone's opinion. If you don't like him, you don't like him. If you do like him, you still like him. So there's a lot of teams that would have taken him in the first round.
Absolutely agree. And my thing is that, look, I'm not advocating just trade Javon Kinlaw, but in the prospect of getting Deshaun Watson, I think that this is a piece that the Niners definitely should consider, given their history and depth at this particular position. I think that's the key that people need to realize. As good as – go ahead.
I was going to say also, like, if not just Watson, other quarterbacks, if I were running this team, I would not want to trade the 12th pick. I would want to hold that. I would be more interested in trading next year's first or last year's first. And, to me, trading Kinlaw is a better option than trading the 12th this year. He's not worth as much, but he's still worth a lot. He was the 14th pick last year. That's all I'm saying. And it doesn't necessarily have to be Watson. It could be someone like whoever, Matt
I'm not even sure. I haven't gotten into it, but I'm not even sure there's an interior defensive lineman in this class that compares to what Kinlaw and Brown were last year. Kinlaw and Brown were pretty special prospects.
Would you trade Jimmy and Javon Kinlaw for Kirk Cousins straight up?
I think that's a little rich.
You think how about Javon Kinlaw for Kirk Cousins straight up?
Yeah, absolutely.
I would do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Would you trade 12 for Kirk Cousins straight up?
Probably not.
See, okay, we agree. We agree on that. See, that's why he's an interesting trade chip, because he might get you close to some serious players.
Right.
He was the 14th pick.
And the bottom line is, like, I like his potential still. I still think he's going to be a very good player. But I think of the guys, because here's the bottom line, and I think this is what Niners fans need to understand. There's not going to be an underpay here. If you're going to get a quarterback, it's always going to be an overpay. So the question is, how much are you willing to overpay?
And that goes for free agency, that goes for the draft, and that goes for trades. It's always because you have to have a quarterback.
It's a premium position, okay? That's the bottom line. Yeah. The biggest question is, how much are you willing to overpay? And my thing is that with Javon Kinlaw in particular, the reason I would be willing to give up on him is because, again, I want to keep mentioning Kevin Givens played really well last year. Contavious Street is really powerful and really stout against the run. I mean, you can re-sign Solomon.
Drew Brees. He's fast.
I know.
He's
a very solid player. DJ Jones has been good when he's played. I know that there were camp reports that were super optimistic about the potential of Darren Daniels. I don't know how true that stands. But I think
I don't really see a big difference between Javon Kinlaw and Kentavious Street. To me, Kentavious Street brings a lot of what Javon Kinlaw brings to the table. To use a terrible sports cliche, much cheaper. You don't want to get rid of Javon Kinlaw. He's a good athlete, but if
you're saying Street can approximate his value. Street can approximate Javon Kinlaw's value.
Too much. You're not going to lose too much.
Yeah. And I think the big thing that you have to look at is I think we all agree edge rusher is in need. And once edge rusher, if they get that secondary edge rusher next to Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead kicks inside on passing downs anyway. So you only have one more position really on your front four because you're realistically with a healthy defense going to be a rush 4, drop 7 defense. That's what your philosophy has been the last 3 years. And so if that happens, you only really need one more guy in your defensive line to rush the passer. And if he's less than Javon Kinlaw and you have Deshaun Watson at quarterback, it's worth it.
Frankly, it's a no-brainer, and I'm surprised that the name hasn't popped up yet. I mean, people have said Bosa, probably not going to happen. Peter King says McGlinchey. I don't know that he actually moves the needle. Let's use that metaphor. Kinlaw does. He was a first-round pick last year. Let's speak this into existence. If it brings in Deshaun Watson, it's like not even a discussion.
Right. Otherwise, I don't think that they should consider trading him. I think he showed enough in their rookie season where they should be really happy with where he is. Right. So Sonny obviously asked, we're getting to it. What free agent bargain buys can the 49ers target that's not a big name, high profile cap casualty, a la K'Wan Williams? Grant, thanks for sharing your journey and keep up the great work, guys.
Thanks, Sonny.
First of all, we really appreciate it, Sonny. Grant, you got names? Because I got names in my back pocket.
You go first.
All right, perfect. So I have 3 names, all on the defensive side of the ball, all positions I would like them to address this offseason. Yep. The first one to me is going to be a bargain given the value of the player, but I think that the Niners are going to have to play the waiting game. And I think the player to look out for is Yannick Ngakoue. I can totally see a situation where Yannick Ngakoue's situation ends up being the exact same as Jadeveon Clowney last year. Okay. Traded to a team midseason, looking for the big contract, didn't necessarily have the type of season that's going to warrant the overpay with the cap going down in free agency. He might hold out and take a 1-year incentive-laden deal late in the market and look to re-up the very next offseason. And I think the thing with Yannick Ngakoue that's more attractive than Clowney is, one, he's not as good a run defender, but a better pass rusher. And 2, he doesn't have the same injury history as Jadeveon Clowney. And then the other 2 are at the cornerback position. This, with the assumption that the Niners bring back Verrett, to me, I brought these 2 names up before. They're not flashy. They're not names that people like. But to me, they're the kind of guys that you can bring into your organization to compete for a starting job, and that's Kevin King and Shaquille Griffin. If the money is right, you can pay both of those guys $4 to $5 million, maybe a 1-year deal, and bring them in to compete for the starting job on the other side of Jason Verrett. And I think they would both, given their talent, given their physical abilities, be good value in that sense if Akello walks, because Akello is also of a similar mold, maybe slightly less proven than the former 2.
Look, you watch more Kevin King than me. He went to my high school, by the way. Shout out Bishop O'Dowd. He's way younger than me, so I'd love to cover a guy who went to my high school. That'd be pretty cool. Only time I watch Kevin King is when he's getting beat.
Yeah, that's the problem, right? That's
the
problem.
But I don't watch that much of him. He's had
a lot of bad moments on national TV, and I think what happens is when you play on the other side of such a good player like Jair Alexander, you're going to get targeted. It happened to
Akello had the same problem, right? Akello had the same problem opposite Richard Sherman. Yep.
Yeah, and it happened to Antonio Cromartie opposite Darrelle Revis. Cromartie was still a really good player, but he got targeted because he was opposite Darrelle Revis. I mean, Kevin King, we know the 49ers like him, right? The expose that Peter King did of John Lynch's first draft, one of the names they discussed there at trading back into the first round, top of the second round, was Kevin King. So I think that I think we both know that they like Kevin King based on that, or they liked him at some point. I think he would be a very, very reasonable bargain because he's still physically gifted. He's 6'3" and he moves well.
Yeah, he works. He fits. Who was the other guy you said? Shaq Griffin. I really like Shaq Griffin. I think he might get some money. He might be the kind of, because he's not too old, 26.
Nah.
He should get some money. Kevin King seems like he could be cheap. The guys I'm going to name are a little older, and these guys I think should be bargained. I've always loved Xavier Rhodes since he came in the league, and I know he had a couple of rough years in Minnesota, but he went to Indy this year and played really well. He's about the same age as Jason Verrett. He's bigger than Jason Verrett, and I think given his age, he shouldn't be too expensive.
He can play zone.
He could play zone. I mean, I would like Xavier Rhodes. I think he's a hell of a player. And staying in the defensive backfield, I do love Jaquiski. You've turned me into more of a Jaquiski Tart appreciator. I see what he brings to the table. He might want to leave. He might get a better deal somewhere else. If he does, someone that would be interesting to target is Keanu Neal. He missed most of a couple of seasons ago, but he played last year and basically played really well. Played most of the season. He shouldn't be too expensive. I'd be interested in Keanu Neal. Those are two guys.
Keanu Neal was a developing superstar. He was looking like a young Cam Chancellor when they played the Seattle scheme in Atlanta at the beginning. Him and Deion Jones looked like the future of that defense, and he's been unlucky with injuries. This is a great name in Desmond King. I'm not sure what the market will be like for Desmond King, though, because he's a very proven player in his past, and I think he might be able to capture some amount of money. We'll see, but I would love to bring in Desmond King.
What about Cordell Patterson?
I don't think the Niners need another ball carrier. Maybe as a kick returner, the Niners could use somebody that's not just going to do the old hands apart and let the touch.
The reason I say Cordell Patterson is because his skill set is so similar to Debo's, and I can't think of a better backup for Debo in the league because Debo's so important. And when he gets hurt, like the Niners offense, not only does it suffer, it changes. Like the identity change. It might be, I don't know. What do you think?
If they sign Cordell Patterson, it'll tell you where they think what they think they have in Jalen Hurd and what they think.
Good point. Because Jalen Hurd kind of is sort of the same.
He's in that mold.
Yeah.
So what the title of this video is, right? It's upcoming trends.
Hold on. One more name. What about Melvin Ingram? One more name. What about Melvin Ingram?
Melvin Ingram is a name that I threw out when I did a podcast with Rob Guerrera on Niners Nation. Check it out last week. And my thing with Melvin Ingram is that I think he's a great name and I think he's a great bargain. He would be my number 2 choice behind Ngakoue, because I think Ngakoue is still ascending, and I think Melvin Ingram is kind of on the downside.
Agree.
My biggest question with Melvin Ingram is, from what I remember watching, haven't watched a lot, so don't quote me, but I felt like the Chargers moved him around a lot and had him rush inside and had him rush over the guard quite a bit. Correct me if I'm wrong. Does he still have the explosion because I think more than anything, the Niners don't need another power rusher anybody. They need somebody to approximate D Ford, which is have a quick first step and be able to bend the edge and
that's Ngakoue.
Quarterback and move him off his spot. Unique Ngakoue, that's what he does. He's
so
made for that, right?
I don't know why he went so late in the draft. You could see it. Where did he go to Maryland? He went to Maryland.
Did he go to Penn? Did he go to Maryland? He went to Maryland.
I thought he did. I don't know. Is his name Yannick or Yannick?
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
If he's watching, he can maybe correct me. Okay, I hope I'm not mispronouncing.
Maryland.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I guess he was a little low. I guess he's a little small at 6'2", 246.
Right.
The same size as D Ford, whatever.
Right. Brian Burns, another smaller guy with that special
good
superstar. Excuse me. Sorry, wrong question. Sorry, Sonny, can't answer that one. But I've seen this a lot with bringing back Hyder. And here's my thing with Kerry Hyder. I think Kerry Hyder had his absolute best season of his career last year. I think to pay him some amount of money, awarding him for last season is not the way to go. Rewarding him for last season. I think if you can get him at a price similar to what they were planning to give Ronald Blair, if he didn't, so like 1 year, $7 million, something like that, I would do it. But I don't think you can bring back Kerry Hyder on like a 2 year, $20 million contract and then think, oh shoot, I'm going to get the same production from him. To me, that's crazy talk.
I think they should offer him something though, because from Kerry Hyder's perspective, like he's done this before. He had the breakout season, then left and got paid and busted, and then had to come back to Chris Koserick. Like, do you want to do that again? Why don't you just stay with Chris Koserick, stay in a situation that works for you, take a little less money, and have a successful career? He's tried this before. The grass isn't always greener. It might work out. The Niners could work.
And then just because this question's been asked twice before we move on to the next topic. On the topic of Kinlaw, do you think the Jets would be interested in a package for another number 2 pick? I don't think the number 2 pick will be a package around Kinlaw, because here's the thing. Here's the most underrated thing about the New York Jets. They have the best interior defensive line in the NFL. Quinnen Williams is an absolute monster, and I don't want to mispronounce his name, so I'm going to Google how to pronounce it. I know there's conversations about Yannick Ngakoue or Yannick Ngakoue, so right here, I'm going to pronounce his name correctly. Give me 1 second. Where is it? Is it John Franklin Myers? They have another interior defensive lineman. I'm blanking on his name, but he is an absolute monster. They have two monsters inside that just dominate and push the pocket with Quinnen Williams. So I don't think they'll be interested in Javon.
Oh, the dude's name? Yeah, he's got a tough one. Folorenzo?
Yeah.
Atukasi.
Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah,
he's
a good
baller.
name. He's got a strong name. He sounds like he's going to be a strong player.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He's okay. He went to UConn. Interesting.
I'm blanking on the names. I'll be more prepared with those next time. But the point is, outside with Quinnen Williams and outside of Quinnen Williams, they have a dominant interior defensive line. So I don't think the Jets would be in the Javon Kinlaw market. I think the Jets are going to be picks or nothing for number.
Also, you don't understand. The second pick in the draft is worth a whole hell of a lot. It's so much. I mean, even Bosa might not be enough to get it. Even Kittle might not be. It's really
not because this draft changes the value because of the way the quarterbacks are perceived. I know Grant doesn't look at them the same way. I think I'm a little closer to looking at them that way. So
it's starting to seem like to me that what the NFL is looking is like, well, the cap's coming down. A rookie quarterback is more valuable than ever. I wouldn't be surprised if quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3, and then another one at like 8, and then another one at like maybe 12.
Dead. Nobody feels
really 5 quarterbacks in the top 10. It could be crazy this year. You saw the report that what's his face, Mike Tannenbaum said lowest Mac Jones is going to go is number 8.
Yeah, wow. I mean, that's crazy to me. So we're going to get into the college quarterbacks. I know Grant's got thoughts. I got thoughts because I finally spent a lot of time looking at them. Thank God I was able to get some college film. So before we get there, I wanted to touch on this. I already got this banner ticking, and it's something that I think is a very interesting topic in the NFL that doesn't get discussed enough, And it is how current NFL trends affect draft decisions or just executive decisions in general. And I'm going to take you back, okay? We'll just do a small case study of this. In 2017, the Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl. How did they win the Super Bowl? They won it 2 ways. 1, dominant middle of the field passing game, RPO. Yes. 2, and the other thing was they spent a lot of money in free agency.
Yes.
That
a lot of free agency.
2018 offseason, how did the league trend? It trended in 2 ways. 1, everybody was overspending, and 2, Baker Mayfield was the first pick in the draft because he was one of the most dominant RPO quarterbacks we've seen in the history of college football. He ate up the middle of the field in Oklahoma. Then in 2018, Sean McVay took the Rams to the Super Bowl. And everybody remembers this trend. The trend was find your Sean McVay. So Cliff Kingsbury got hired. Matt LaFleur got hired. I mean, we don't know the merits of all
any white guy who's 35 got hired.
Right. Yeah. Everybody was looking for the next Sean McVay.
Yeah.
To me, this year's
I'm the next Sean McVay, actually. I almost fit the bone structure and you know what I'm saying?
Oh, are you actually?
No, I don't think
I thought you were the next Grant Cohn.
I wish. Oh, man. Okay, so
Grant Cohn. But so we're going to jump a little ahead of this trend, right? Because I think the NFL trend this year, and I think it's always a shocking thing. It's because it has to have shock value. Teams have to think it's not going to work. And people wrote off Josh Allen so strongly. And Josh Allen came on the scene and is without a doubt a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I think that's the trend this year. Teams are going to look to find their Josh Allen, whatever that is.
And not just teams, but like the media scouts too. They're like, forget everything we thought we knew about quarterbacks. I was wrong about Josh Allen, and I'm not going to be wrong about a player like that again. So now all I'm going to look at is tools. That's it.
Right. Tools. And so I think this is something really to be interested in and look at because Josh Allen, let's be honest, in terms of just physical tools, this is the most gifted quarterback I've ever seen. Maybe Mahomes is the only one in the same conversation. I've never seen an arm this strong. He's so big. He is so imposing. He's so fast. And I mean, the improvement also of his game, like he had all these tools, but the improvement of all his game and the way he's refined himself in things that growing up in the NFL, that like not growing up in the NFL, but growing up observing the NFL, I was always told by like people who covered it and stuff that the things that Josh Allen didn't have were the things you can't teach. The touch, accuracy, the it factor, the movement, all the accuracy, the touch, all of this. People said, "Oh, that's the it. Only some people have that. You can't teach that." And they said, "You can teach arm strength." Blah blah blah. They always said that, right? They said strong arm isn't important. When in reality, one, strong arm is very important. But that's besides the point. But two, Josh Allen was able to develop all those skills, which brings me to, and I don't want to just zero in on one person, but it brings me to the point that I think that this NFL draft, it's going to be a lot about not just at quarterback. I think we're going to see a lot of different positions where height, weight, speed prospects, because DK Metcalf is another one that teams overlooked. And I think we're going to see a trend of guys who have spectacular traits physically, maybe not at the level of Josh Allen or DK Metcalf, because those are super aliens, are going to get overdrafted.
And this is just going to lead to different types of busts, in my opinion, because just looking at tools is not a more scientific way of scouting quarterbacks than whatever they were doing in the past. It's just kind of like flip-flopping, pulling a 180. It's really, really, really hard to scout quarterbacks because for a lot of reasons, but I feel like one of the big reasons is so much depends on where they go and the situation they go to and the team's culpability in their failure or success. And they don't look at that. So when they look at like Justin Herbert or they look at Josh Allen succeeding, well, he didn't play well his first year. And Buffalo really was patient with him and stuck by him and didn't fire a bunch of coaches. And they surrounded him with good play. They brought in Stephon Diggs. I mean, maybe Diggs helped a lot. Maybe without Diggs, he wouldn't have had his rating wouldn't have been what it was.
No,
so it was kind of, he succeeded, but the Bills did right by him. I mean, is Justin Fields going to get the same treatment from the Jets or wherever, or the Falcons or wherever he goes? Maybe he'll fail and it won't. Like DeShone Kizer, for example. DeShone Kizer. A lot of people liked him. He went to the Browns and had to play for Hugh Jackson. And I don't even know is he still in the league?
No,
I don't even know.
I think he might have recirculated, but he was in Green Bay and Green Bay cut him.
Yeah, it just seems like the guy never got a chance. Like Josh Rosen never got a chance. It's
tough too. Yeah. It's tough too because when you go to the situation that DeShone Kizer did, you got to be really special to get up that next year and find yourself, find your confidence, and improve your play. Because all you're doing is losing. All you're doing, is taking beatings. You're not given an advantage in terms of coaching. You're not given any sort of thing. And your only opinion of the NFL is that it's impossible. It's difficult. Yeah. It's hard. It's hard not to sit there and say, well, damn, I might just suck at this. I might not be good at it.
Right. But again, like that's the same thing that Sam Darnold's going through. But he gets the benefit of the doubt. He's still a viable player in the league. People believe that he could be a stud in the right situation. It's interesting which players get that belief.
I know, it. My number one pet peeve. It's my number one pet peeve, and I think it's a problem with how all sports are covered. But I can rant on this all day. I'm not going to rant on it. I think this is something that everybody should be paying attention to, though, because I think the NFL is such a copycat league. Like, I don't think people realize, like, oftentimes it's a copycat league from the owners, from the GMs, every person that makes an executive decision. That's why, like, last year, the Niners run game, it was so unique, so different. If you go look at all the Shanahan guys, they went and added elements of power, elements of gap scheme to their outside zone and inside zone because the Niners added that. The jet sweep motion. When Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan were doing it in 2017, they were doing orbit motion, jet motion, all of that. Not a lot of teams were doing it. Now, if you don't have any sort of motion in your offense, without even watching you, they'll call you a bad offensive coordinator because there's analytics that track your percentage of going in motion. So it's just these trends in the league that you have to pay attention to. And I think it's just a copycat. It's a monkey see, monkey do type of ideology. You're probably going to be wrong looking for the next Josh Allen because you might never find him, but it's what's going to happen.
Yeah, and the bigger point is, like, why is the NFL so bad at scouting the most important position? It's $1 billion enterprise, and the most important thing that they have to figure out is, like, accurately scouting and projecting quarterbacks. I mean, and they can't do it, and they've never been able to do it. It's an exact science. But I think what we're seeing is they overreact to whatever happens this season.
Right. And
it doesn't bring you any closer to the truth.
No, because it's impossible. It's honest. It's the hardest thing, honestly, to do in sports. And it's honest to God, the hardest thing to do because they come in all shapes and they come in all different shapes and sizes. And so one guy might be very good because of 2 or 3 specific traits, but another guy might be good because of 2 or 3 different traits. Yeah. And how do you know which trait is more valuable? I think that whoever's good at it, well, that's why they make a lot of money. And I'm just a guy in my bedroom just watching, so I don't have to be good at it.
And who knows, maybe if Patrick Mahomes had gone to Buffalo, he wouldn't have developed in the same way that he developed in Kansas City. And if Josh Allen had gone to Kansas City, maybe he wouldn't have been as good right away. And who knows? I think a lot of times it's just like a guy was the right person for the right place at that time. And it just worked. I don't know.
I 100% agree with that, which is why I don't like getting into the coach or quarterback credit, because to me, in reality, it has to work in unison, and it has to work in concert. So for that reason, it's a lot of the NFL is, and any type of business is about relationships and marrying the right kind of people together. And so I'm so excited to see this because I can't wait to see what the trend is. Do you have a prediction before we go on what you think the 2021 trend is?
Well, no, not. Well, I think it's the toolsy quarterback thing, the Josh Allen, Justin Herbert.
No.
For next year?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. What do you think? Well, I was going to say was like the other thing that I noticed is how one player gets the next player drafted. I remember as a kid, like Carson Palmer hits and he's great. Well, Matt Leinart must be a first-round pick too. Yeah. Carson Wentz was a big deal. Well, Trey Lance must be the truth too. Or Tua Tagovailoa is the 7th pick. Well, now we got to look at Mac Jones because he might just be maybe Mac Jones is the 7th pick in the draft. And it's like one misevaluation leads to the next misevaluation. And it's just kind of interesting how these people are all evaluated against each other when no one really knows how good the first one guy was coming out of college in the first place. So what do you think is the trend, the next one?
So I think that the number one trend in the NFL, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I think that the trend in the NFL, this is what I think it's going to be, because I think you can see parts of what the previous trend is going to be the year before, right? Like the Seattle Seahawks were a very good defense in 2012. And then 2013, they became an all-time great defense. And then the Seattle scheme, everybody had to run the Seattle scheme. Everybody had to run single high safety and match cover 3 zone. And I think the big trend is going to be, we saw a little bit of it this year with what the Rams did with split safety coverage and being able to stop the run with split safety coverage. I think the big deal in the NFL, I mean, the Niners have trended towards it. They've gotten away from, Robert Saleh went away from the Seattle scheme. They run their main coverage now is not cover 3. It's actually quarters. They run cover 4 because they like running split safety.
It's the stuff that Vic Fangio was doing 10 years ago.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers just won a Super Bowl running split safety coverage and running a lot of 2-man. I think
you could argue the Niners would have beaten the Chiefs if they had run more 2. I mean, they got caught on 3rd and 15 in single high. They should have been in 2 high the whole game. Yup. It's important.
Yeah, so I think that's what's going to be the trend of the league. I think that's where it's going to go.
Yeah, that makes sense. Copy Todd Bowles. That means that guy's going to be a head coach again soon.
I think so too. So now we've gotten a lot of questions about this. Let's get into it. Let's get into draft quarterbacks. I've spent some time doing it. Grant's been putting out his opinions rapid fire on Twitter, rapid fire on YouTube. He's been firing with these opinions. And so the first name I wanted to start off with is Justin Fields. And what I wanted to do before I let you talk about him, Grant, is that I saw a tweet that you put out, and I wanted to add some context to a tweet. Sure. So you put a tweet out saying that Justin Fields is not Cam Newton, is not Deshaun Watson. Right. He didn't transform the Ohio State Buckeyes. So I think there's a couple things you're missing with Justin Fields here. The first thing I think that you're missing is that the Ohio State that you're talking about with Dwayne Haskins, with Braxton Miller, all these guys was coached by who?
Urban.
He is one of what? The 10 greatest coaches in college football history. Is Ryan Day the same level of coach as Urban Meyer? I would tend to say no. I think he's
hold on. What I would say about Urban Meyer, and you can disagree with me on this one. I've never really been impressed with Urban Meyer as a coach. He's a competent coach in terms of his schemes and stuff. But what he is he's a
culture setter.
Yes. And he is an amazing recruiter. It seems to me that Ohio State's still recruiting just fine.
To an extent, but I would say the thing with Urban Meyer is that I think he's a culture setter. I mean, he's hired the right kind of people to set trends in college football, right? Him and Dan Mullen set the trend with the spread offense in college football, and he was the one who hired Dan Mullen, and they did that. And he's set up cultures in different places. Now, those cultures might be built on very, very flimsy kind of roots because there's a lot of questionable things in terms of character that goes on.
No, but he definitely brings in the best players in the country to his program. Right. He definitely does it from Florida.
And he builds a culture of winning in whatever short time he's there, whatever time he's there. He can transform an entire situation. I don't know if Ryan Day has that same type of power and demeanor or kind of that, because I mean, Urban Meyer is kind of a Machiavellian leader.
And I know Ryan Day. Ryan Day was the quarterback coach on the Niners under Chip Kelly. I mean, he's just another spread offense guy. To me, again, I've never felt like there was a whole lot going on with Urban Meyer's scheme, but he was at the forefront of that trend in college football. I think his legacy in college football is that he's, if not maybe the greatest recruiter of all time, one of them. Right. But look, dude, that team in Ohio State, Trey Sermon, hell of a player. Whoever his backup is, hell of a player. Olave, the wide receiver, always open. I mean, it's a pretty good team. Pretty good team.
It is a good team. It is a good team, but I did want to give that context.
That's a good point, though. That is a good point.
Just for the sake to defend Justin Fields. I know. I just knowing you, I know that if I came out here and told you John Elway went 5-6 his senior year, you would have said, "Well, who was he playing with in Stanford?" Which I would have said fair to compare to what Justin Fields played with, obviously. So I had to bring in something a little different and throw you off.
No, that's a good call. It's a really good point. It's like if Dabo Swinney had left Clemson, or Nick Saban had left Alabama. It's a really good point. All I'm saying is I feel like the Ohio State quarterbacks, the Alabama quarterbacks, those two schools in particular are really hard to evaluate those quarterbacks because it's hard to separate. It's almost damn near impossible to separate the quarterback from all the talent around him.
So let's get into that. So let's talk about Justin Fields, and let's talk about why I'm high on Justin Fields.
Okay.
And for me, the number one thing I want to mention when I talk about Justin Fields is I don't want to even talk about his physical tools. The number one thing that stood out to me in the last 2 days when I've watched Justin Fields, I sent a tweet about it earlier, is his toughness. This is the toughest quarterback in the draft, and it is the thing that to me separates him from Dwayne Haskins, is that Dwayne Haskins wasn't standing in the pocket looking to throw the football down the field. He was comfortable just checking the ball down with these little crossing routes. He had a great throwing motion. Everybody thought that Dwayne had, and his numbers were great because
numbers were great. But every Ohio State quarterback, you can't look at the box score. You just
right. But
that'll get you in trouble.
Justin Fields is different to me in the sense that I think this is actually one of his flaws. But to me, it's a good flaw. One of his flaws to me is that he's so willing to stand in that pocket tough to push the ball down the field that sometimes he doesn't take what the defense gives him. And sometimes he's athletic enough to get out of the pocket, escape, and do something else. But he's so tough, he's going to stand in there and look to push the ball down the field. I think that's a part of his game that I think Kyle Shanahan would like. And I think that's a part of his game that could definitely improve once he comes in the NFL, because you can't teach that kind of toughness. Kirk Cousins was the same way, where he would just stand in there. And now look at him. He's improved in his presence. He's improved in his maturity. He's improved at moving outside of it. But the toughness, you can't teach that. And Justin Fields has it. And then let's get into the physical ability. I mean, you're talking about a special arm, the ability to throw the ball. I wouldn't say in terms of creativity and arm angles, he's like Zach Wilson, but it's a really strong arm. He stands in there tall. He stands in strong. He's really athletic. He's mobile. And one play I wanted to point out before you go is Rich Madrid posted it on Twitter. You had him on. He did an awesome job when you had him on your show. At Grant Cohn, by the way. Those of you who haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe. But he posted a throw, and it's basically they're playing two-man to the boundary, and it's a 45-yard touchdown. And basically what happens is Chris Olave burns the corner, but that's okay because they're playing two men, so the corner really has to play in trail. And basically, it's between the near hash and the sideline. You have the safety who actually starts 3 yards outside the hash. So the safety only has to run about 8 yards to make a play on this ball. But he throws the deep ball with so much touch, but yet it's flat and with so much arm talent, and the accuracy is so precise, throwing it back shoulder. It's a 45-yard bomb that 3 yards from the hash, the safety has no chance of getting the ball. It was as impressive a throw as I've seen. It was phenomenal. I'm really high on the prospect of Justin Fields if in the case that a team like the Niners should get him, because I think he would be a superstar in that situation.
Okay. Let me tell you what I see from Justin Fields. I've watched a lot of Justin Fields. I think that Justin Fields probably has the most upside of all the quarterbacks in this draft. Put it that way. I think he has the best tools and the most upside. But I don't think he's a particularly good quarterback right now, in the sense that I think he's going to struggle big time as a rookie. And you know what? So did Josh Allen. And that's not necessarily a reason not to draft a guy in round 1. But I think we have to be clear on what he is right now. I mean, his job at Ohio State is one of the easier jobs in the country. Same with Mac Jones. You can't hold that. You still have to evaluate him, and he's still a hell of an athlete. But 22 starts, he's had some bad games. He didn't play particularly well in 2 of the 3 playoff games he played. He really struggled against Northwestern, and there was one more this year. I forget which one it was. He won the game, but he threw 2 picks.
Indiana.
Yes, Indiana. So amazing upside. And that upside, he's kind of like James Wiseman. You know what I'm saying? Like, the upside is just so apparent. And it's going to get him drafted real high, probably 2. But when you put him on the field in an NFL game, I think he's going to be a little I think he's going to struggle at first. Inexperienced, playing at Ohio State, how he's going to be at the Jets, dude. You don't understand. You were on an all-star team. Now you're going to a terrible team with probably a bad coach. And the system may not even fit you. If you were on the Niners, you'd have a better shot. But still, I mean, the offensive line is shaky. You're not going to have the time you had at Ohio State. I think he's, best case, a guy like Josh Allen who will be balling year 3. That's what I'm saying. And worst case, he's a guy like Sam Darnold who goes to a bad team, is toolsy, but never puts it all together. And the thing that scares me about him, that the reason this, like when I talk to people like, not necessarily you, but people like, Rich, who really like him. Okay, well, who's the comp? Who do you see him as? Deshaun Watson. Well, then who do you see?
I see a mixture of Dak Prescott and Ryan Tannehill.
Oh, okay. Well, okay, that's fair. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Because, I mean, when people say Deshaun, I'm like, well, dude, Deshaun won a national championship. I think Deshaun would have won a national championship at Ohio State.
I think with Deshaun is Deshaun as a human being, like, we're talking about one of the greatest college football players ever, and just has this kind of career.
One of the most accomplished college quarterbacks of all time. His resume is A1.
Right. And 2, I think there's a feel and a magic to Deshaun that you can't really compare to any other player in football. Deshaun is pretty magical when he gets on the field. To me, the comparison actually, and I think one of the things that people really harp on with Justin Fields is he's not the most anticipatory thrower. Well, I'm not even going to get into his system and how that affects it, because I think
That's how most mobile quarterbacks are. It's just kind of comes with the territory
on that point. And
most anticipatory throwers are that way because they have to be. I'm just saying.
Right. That's one. 2, I think one of the things in 2 is I was talking to Eric Crocker earlier, and he made a great point to me on the phone. Is he said, well, why the hell do you pay these coaches so much money? He's got all these things. You should be able to teach him. Well, if they rotate to single high, you're going to throw the ball here. If they do this, you're going to have to anticipate to throw the ball here. The game is processed for a lot of these young quarterbacks because of these systems. I mean, that's why they're able to succeed right away. So I think
look at Alex Smith, man. Like what happens is the dude comes in the league and he struggles the first year.
Yeah, but the coordinator gets fired. Scenario. You're talking about the worst case offensive scenario.
No, I'm talking about the typical scenario. What often happens is a guy like Justin Fields go to some terrible team like Alex Smith did, and you struggle the first year and someone gets blamed for it. Maybe it's the offensive coordinator. He gets fired. You bring in a new system year 2. Now you're putting that quarterback in a bad spot. It's so easy for the developmental process to get messed up. Coaches get fired. The NFL is not for long. It's rare that a guy like Josh Allen gets to stay in one environment and everyone is on board with losing and developing slowly. Usually someone gets fired and the development gets messed up, and then you're Sam Darnold or you're Josh Rosen or you're
I think in my opinion he's a bit more polished. He's more polished than Josh Allen when he came out, just in terms of being able to function within the pocket and just in terms of how accurate he is short to intermediate. I mean,
what I'll say is that Josh Allen had 2 years of getting his butt kicked on a bad team. So he knew what it was like to be at a talent deficit. And that's going to be a little different for a dude coming from an all-star team.
But when I watched Justin Fields, I don't look at a guy that was just given immaculate protection during his time in college. I mean, some of his hits that he took were self-inflicted, but he was also put under pressure. I mean, the Indiana game, he was getting rocked. So
I know he didn't respond very well to it. The thing about Ohio State is even compared to Alabama, like they're in the Big Ten. Like most of their schedule, they're just way better than the teams they play most of the time. So the 22 games he played in college.
I think we're going to see a lot like the Ohio State players that Urban brought in, all those guys that get drafted. I think you're going to see a lot less guys come into the draft from Ohio State. I don't think this team is as good anywhere near those teams with Joey Bosa, Ezekiel Elliott, Michael Thomas. So
I thought that Trey Sermon guy was amazing against Clemson, the running back. I thought he was fantastic. And also that wide receiver, Olave.
Is good.
If they had a quarterback who would air it out more. The thing about Fields, like he calls his own, he runs a lot, and that's what Zach Wilson does. It's what runners do. A guy like Mac Jones, I guarantee you, if he was Ohio State's quarterback, that Olave dude would have had 1,000 yards. I mean, he would have been much more productive. And that's why you hear Devontae Smith say, "We like better Mac Jones or two at Mac Jones."
I think comparing systems, Steve Sarkisian is a much better offensive system than what Ryan Day had for Justin Fields. So I think you have to take those things into account. Mac Jones absolutely could not function in Ohio State system because Ohio State system, part of it was reliant on Justin Fields' running ability, and Mac Jones offers nothing from that standpoint. And his running ability opened up a lot for them in the run and the pass game.
From what I've seen with Justin Fields, I'll just put it this way: like he would definitely improve the Niners' run game right off the bat. He's a hell of a runner. He really is. But he doesn't see the field better than Jimmy Garoppolo right now. Like he has like one or two guys open on every play because it's Ohio State. You can watch the film yourself. You'll see it. And he often won't see guys. He'll read one side of the field. He'll choose to run when guys are open. That's fine. I mean, that's part of the developmental process for guys like him, Steve Young. It's okay. But that's what he is right now. That's all I'm saying. And if you're going to bring him onto the Niners, he's not necessarily going to be an upgrade as a passer from Jimmy Garoppolo. In fact, he'll be a downgrade with upside. But that's why I really feel that way. If you're bringing in Justin Fields to start next year, you're not necessarily going to make the playoffs with that guy. That's you're looking for the future now, I think.
All right,
I think he's more of a project than people want to admit.
Well, I disagree, but we can beat this topic to death for the next 15 months.
Yeah.
So for the sake of time, let's move to the guy. Let's skip a guy and move to the guy that we kept bringing up in conversation, and that's Mac Jones. And so let me give you my thoughts on Mac Jones, okay? I think he might be the cleanest of all these quarterbacks when you just watch him play football. It's clean. He's got nice feet. He's got good feel. He throws with nice touch. He's accurate. He's got everything. He's got all the old school quarterback traits, the it factor, the anticipation, the touch. And I think I said it, we talked about it.
He has no tools. Zero.
The first time we talked about it, I think I said that I don't think he's that far from Tua. I think it's very similar in how close they are. Maybe Tua was a little better, but now I know you've gone and said you think he's better than Tua.
From what I've seen, I think he's better than, because I actually feel like Tua's physical tools were way overstated. He doesn't have a big arm. He's not particularly elusive.
He's really small. He's really small.
So I'm looking at Mac Jones, who also has no physical traits that stand out. He doesn't have a strong arm. He's not mobile. He's not elusive. But he has all the little things that Tua plays like an athlete. And Mac Jones knows his limitations. I do think Mac Jones is a better player.
So here's where I stand with Mac Jones, okay? And I need somebody to explain this to me. And it goes to, how do you separate evaluating the player from evaluating the college system they play in? And the Alabama offense is phenomenal. But I think that Fields would get a system upgrade. I think that the Alabama offense is just, as a system, better than most offenses that Mac Jones or Tua are going to end up playing.
You can say that about LSU, though. I mean, with Joe Brady there, you can say that about that. I'm telling you, I think Mac Jones is better than Joe Brady, but everything you're going to say about Mac Jones applies to. Excuse me. I think Mac Jones is better than Joe Burrow. Excuse me. Let me try again. I think Joe Burrow is better than Mac Jones. But everything you're going to say about Mac Jones applies to Joe. It took me 4 tries. I got the words out, though. I did.
I haven't made my point yet. My point is, how do you separate evaluating what Mac Jones does, because he's gotten NFL coaching, right? He's gotten Steve Sarkisian, Nick Saban, to NFL level coaches. How do you separate that, like those little things that you say he does as a passer? How much of it is he's coached to do these things, and how much of it is that he's actually capable of doing those things? And you brought up Joe Burrow, and the two things I want to mention with Joe Burrow is, yeah, they had a system with NFL pass concepts, but here was the difference between Joe Burrow and Mac Jones. Joe Burrow was in shot, four wide receivers out, and Joe Burrow dictated pre-snap what he did with their offense. Joe Brady wasn't calling plays to go to specific guys. Joe Burrow was dictating pre-snap what he did with the offense, and Joe Burrow post-snap was also dictating what he did with the offense. And two, the most important thing with Joe Burrow, and I think it gets pointed out a lot, is that he was able to create a lot of plays when the play call wasn't there for him. With Mac Jones, we see that here and there. We see a nice little scramble when it's not there. We see an occasional roll out of the pocket and make a play. But I don't think that Joe Burrow is even near the comparison, because Joe Burrow, broken play, free rusher, he'll make the free rusher miss, run around and throw a 35-yard deep ball. It was like watching Peyton Manning with mobility in college. That's kind of what he was like. So I don't think that that's a fair comparison. I know that you think he's better, so I think you stand right there in the same boat that Burrow is. With Jones, honestly, I'm just conflicted, because it's clean, it's good to me. It looks like a guy that should be about maybe an end of a first round, beginning of the second round type pick in terms of talent. He's clean enough where I would just take him in the first round to get the fifth-year option. But I don't know how much he's going to improve, because he's already possibly gotten the best coaching he's ever going to get in his entire career.
Well, here's what I see when I watch Mac Jones on film. I think it's a really good point. You have to try to find something that looks like what it's going to look like in the NFL, because at Ohio State and Alabama, a lot of the time that guy's just chilling. I call it playing quarterback in a rocking chair. I think that creates an image. You're chilling back there. There's no stress. It's like your blood pressure, your blood is way low. You're chilling. So what do I see from him? In the brief times when he's in a pocket that constricts, doesn't even collapse, it constricts, and there are bodies around him. You hear Kyle Shanahan talk about that. How does he play with bodies around him? I just see he'll bail. And it's subtle. It's like, well, he's scrambling. That's okay. But you go back like, no. Let's go back, Mac. That's an NFL pocket. You have to stand and deliver from there. And what he looks like in those pockets is small, unathletic, nervous. And that scares me, because Jared Goff was great in college. I mean, Jared Goff was just as good as Mac Jones, or better, right? And the issue with Jared Goff is that when the pocket constricts, he can't collapse. He can't handle it. And I really think that's going to be Mac Jones as well. I think he's a hell of a player, but he might be, what is the word? Soft, I guess? A little soft? I'm sorry. I mean, I think Jared Goff is freaking soft. I think Jimmy Garoppolo has questions. I mean, he's the dude who did 3 pirouettes in one play. And with Mac Jones, I'm questioning it, because he doesn't show the willingness to just stand there when the pocket collapses. I have seen him like stare down a blitzer, an unblocked guy, and take the hit. That's great. But it's another thing when there's this bodies all around you and you are unfazed. Maybe it's just because he's little. Maybe it's because Alabama's not used to it. I don't know.
I think that's a really interesting point. I haven't watched Mac Jones enough to see that.
It's like a play or two a game. It's hard to find those clips in Alabama.
Which is why I've been sticking with this question. I've just been asking every single person, how do you go about your evaluation of Mac Jones? Because those that will attribute it to the system and all of that will say, well, it's all the coaching. Don't take him in the first round. And then the other guys say, well, yeah, the coaching is really great. The system is really great. The receivers are really great, but he's also doing a lot of things operating within it. And I think, again, I spoke to Crocker earlier, and I think he put it best to me. He said, the one thing you can be convinced with Mac Jones is that you've seen him operate an NFL-style offense in an NFL-style manner, being able to play on time and on schedule. And if seeing is believing for you, you haven't seen Justin Fields in an NFL-style offense having to do those types of things. You haven't seen Zach Wilson even. Yeah. I mean, there's NFL-style concepts and stuff, but you haven't seen him do it in the fashion a coach would like Mac Jones did. So that's why I understand why people really gravitates towards Mac Jones. To me, ultimately, I think right now I would say that I would take him in the first round, but only at the end of it to get his 5th-year option.
Yeah. To me, I mean, here's I keep comparing him to Jimmy. I think they have about the same stature, And I think he's better than Jimmy. I think he's smarter than Jimmy. I think he's more decisive than Jimmy. I think he sees the field better than Jimmy. I think he's got a much better deep ball than Jimmy. That being said, that's about what you're getting. He doesn't move that well. He's not that big. Physically, there are zero traits about him that you would say that stand out. Nothing.
This is my comp right here. I've had this comp in my back pocket, but Adam Barnaby gets credit for it because he beat me to it on mentioning it. I think he's Andy Dalton. That's who I see. But the big difference, I think, is that with Andy Dalton coming out of TCU, if I remember correctly, there was supposed to be something special about Andy Dalton.
Andy Dalton was a 4-year starter in college. Can we just make that point? He was a 4-year starter at TCU. This guy's played 17 games at Alabama. It's a difference. I don't know if Mac Jones is ready to play right away. Just because he's right in the pocket passer?
I'm not saying he's Andy Dalton, meaning he's going to have Andy Dalton's career. I'm saying he reminds me of Andy Dalton in terms of his abilities.
And Andy Dalton was a second-round pick. Look, if you could take Mac Jones, Andy Dalton was what? He was the
33rd pick.
35th pick in the draft. I'm cool with taking Mac Jones with the 35th pick. I think that'd be a solid pick for any NFL team. But 8? There was a report that he's going to be the 8, no less. Hey, good luck. I'm not doing that. No, not me.
Grant's not doing it. All right, let's go to another name. Let's go to Zach Wilson, because this to me is the most intriguing quarterback in this entire draft. To me, like, I have such conflicted opinions about Zach Wilson. Like, I love some of the things I see from Zach Wilson, but again, I have questions kind of in the opposite direction of Mac Jones on some of the things. There are some things that we just didn't get to see him do that much in BYU that, again, like, he does things that you can't teach, right? The things he does really well are just things you can't teach. Like, he is a special deep ball thrower, special down the field thrower. Especially outside the numbers, when he throws a deep ball outside the numbers, you can kind of see why people have that Aaron Rodgers comparison, because he has a really easy feel for the touch, the
back shoulder fade,
timing. Yeah, throwing back shoulder. It's easy for him. He's insanely good at it. But there's just a couple things about him that, instead of me highlighting Benjamin Solik, I retweeted his article. He did a phenomenal job of going through what it is. He wrote it in a better sense than I could describe it to you. So I would just recommend that you go read that particular article, because those are very real questions about Zach Wilson. So I know, in my opinion, he is worth a top 10 pick, and I would take him in the top 10. That's way too rich for Grant. I'm 100% sure of it. But I still, he's confusing to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a lot like Justin Fields in the sense that he's toolsy. If you like him, you like his highlights. He makes really impressive throws, rolling left, rolling right, downfield. But the more you watch, like, he's the anti-Mac Jones. Mac Jones, like, his highlights are like, but when you watch the actual coach's tape, you're like, okay, well, that was impressive. You threw with anticipation. Actually, now that I've charted the entire game, you actually do know where to go with the ball. You're not predetermining your reads. You're not missing open people. You're actually a very polished quarterback. Part of it is Alabama, but you really have more of an appreciation. When you watch Zach, it's like almost all of his throws are predetermined. It seems like to me, even the short ones, the long ones. It's a lot of play action, rollout, one read stuff, and that's fine. But I feel like there's a lot of quarterbacks who would put up good numbers and highlights at BYU running that system.
So I was texting with a few people about this, just asking questions about it, because to me, and people confirm this just talking about the system, Rich Madrid was one of those people. Like, BYU's offense basically gave him pre-snap. They gave him the keys to the offense, and they let him dictate the offense pre-snap. And he was usually pretty good at picking which side to go with the ball, but usually pre-snap matchup dictated. He wasn't changing his mind based on pro-snap rotations and stuff where he went to the ball. And he was good at it pre-snap, but
at BYU
game, right, and he was good at it pre-snap, and he was accurate. But the question is, how much can he do it post-snap in the NFL? And that's something that I guess you and I can't
He'll have to develop that. And all I'm saying is the NFL really isn't a developmental league. Sometimes some players get this great situation where they get developed, like Josh Allen. But most of the time, you get the Alex Smith treatment. It doesn't work, and then you get a new coordinator, and just snowballs. So if you're getting Zach Wilson, the good thing about the Bills and Josh Allen is they weren't in denial about what he was. It was all a projection. He's tools. We're going to stick with him. We'll go through the growing pains. It'll be worth it. Are you willing to do that with Zach Wilson, or are you thinking Zach Wilson's going to tear it up like Kyler Murray did right away? And if he doesn't, do you give up on him? Because it's like that's my problem. It's not even Zach Wilson's fault. He has all these great tools and highlights. He's going to be drafted real high, and some team that doesn't know what to do with him could ruin him and then blame him. That's what I'm saying. He's a project.
This is a misconception. He does not run a high school offense. He runs they probably have more NFL concepts in their offense than Justin Fields even.
It's like the Niners offense from the pistol, basically.
So there's enough NFL concepts in his offense where he shouldn't have a problem. The problem is that they just allow him to read everything pre-snap rather than make him call a play and have him decipher post-snap based on safety rotations and other things like that, where to go with the ball. I like him a lot, bottom line. I just think I don't know. I'm a sucker for a guy who can really throw it. And when he's got that really efficient, quick throwing motion that he can generate velocity and power from any platform and with people around, I'm just a sucker.
All right, let me address that real quick because I watch a lot of him. And what I appreciate, the reason I think I like Fields better than Wilson is Fields has that extra arm strength when there's guys in his face and he can't step into his throw. He can fire it off his back foot. He's got a cannon. Zach Wilson, if you notice, he moves around a lot and it's fun to watch. But one of the things he accomplishes with all that movement is momentum. He gets a lot of momentum into his throws. And I notice when he has bodies in his face and he has to just hang back and throw off his back foot, the arm is more regular at that point. Not bad. It's just regular at that point.
So I agree with you. I think Fields has the stronger arm of the two. I think the draw to Wilson is that I think he generates power and velocity off different platforms and kind of with creativity. I think that's the big draw to Wilson. Those are the two things. But I think Fields has the stronger arm. I do think the arm strength with Wilson gets overstated when people throw out Mahomes and Rodgers. It's not there for me. It's not Mahomes.
At his throws, you want that. It's just you don't always get that luxury in the NFL.
Right. I think the two closer in terms of arm strength is I think he generates velocity like Baker, who throws a ball with a lot of power. And I think the distance is closer to Carr than it is to Mahomes, where flicks the ball 70 yards off his back foot. I don't think that's
Carr's arm. He pretty much has Carr's arm. I think that's a pretty good compare. Carr has a good arm. Carr's a good arm.
Great arm.
Baker kind of has a cannon. Baker really throws the hell out of that.
Baker throws it hard, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if it Wilson has. Yeah. All right.
But
I like Wilson. I just feel like, again, he's going to be drafted to start and play right away and win. Not win, but to show. What I tweeted is these top 10 quarterbacks are expected to elevate the team. It's like, hey, we suck. You're great. Show something. Do something. Make us feel good about investing so much in you. And a lot of times they don't right away, and it's not their fault.
Right.
I think Zach Wilson is a guy who struggled right away on one of these top 10 teams. Same with Justin Fields. And all I'm saying is you got to know that going into business with him.
It's a tough thing, and I think
you expect Justin Herbert now.
We're talking about trends, right? I was going to bring him up.
Right? Justin Herbert now. You got to be good now.
The criticism with Herbert was, forget nationally, he couldn't elevate Oregon, who was probably the most gifted or one of the more gifted teams in the Pac-12. He couldn't have them definitively be the best team in the Pac-12, which was a criticism people put on him, and they learned it the hard way that they evaluated him wrong. So I think they're trying to get
propping up Oregon. It was not the same program it was 10 years ago. He was dropping that, and then now they're 4-3 this year.
Yeah, right. So I think that people looked at it from that standpoint, and I think that there is going to be something like that to look at. So this is exciting. We're going to talk about these quarterbacks a lot more. Again, this is just a one-time thing here at Blake and Vish Sports. We will be back on the Grant Cohn's channel for the next few Mondays with Vish, but this was awesome. And so now I got nothing more for you, Grant. You want to just take some questions?
Yeah, I got to do a Cohn phone at 4. So could we do 10, 15 minutes? Is that all right?
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. Right. So just hit us with questions if you see them. Grant, if you see any questions you want to touch, let's
well, there was one from Horatio. He was really asking it a bunch of times, and he was, I think, more directed toward you. And you started to address it, but we didn't finish it. Yes, let's talk that one. Let's do that one.
Okay. So weapons.
It's fair. I mean, he had NFL coach. He had Justin Jefferson, who's freaking amazing, and Jamar Chase, who might be even better. Not to mention the first-round pick at running back. So let's talk about it.
Terrace Marshall, who's going to be a second-round pick this year. Lloyd Cushenberry, who was a third-round pick. They had everything.
Oh yeah. Maybe not quite the offensive line. Maybe not quite the offensive line.
No.
Yeah.
Though they did win the award for the nation's best offensive line, they all should have given that award to Joe Burrow because Joe Burrow made them look a lot better than they were. Okay, so this
I can't think of any NFL players on that offensive line. Yeah.
One, I think the weapons argument is just one you throw out. Like it to me, it's an overstated argument because the reality of it is that any quarterback that puts up great stats in college football is playing in a great system and playing with great receivers. That's one. That's one because otherwise you're going to be
scouting based on stats first.
Right. So that's not true. Two, the big thing is, and I think the big thing is between Mac Jones and Joe Burrow. Let's take away system. I touched on it. I think Joe Burrow is a faster processor, and I think that in his system he had more on his plate than Mac Jones has with Sarkisian. Let's get away from that. Let's forget the play calls. The one thing Joe Burrow does have, and I think this separated him from a lot of different quarterbacks, is forget the arm, because I think that's when people say Joe Burrow physically isn't special just because his arm is is league average or if a little lower than league average. I think that Joe Burrow has elite athleticism when we're talking about foot speed, foot quickness, agility, movement. Mac Jones doesn't have his movement skills.
Again, Mac Jones's tools are terrible. Like in terms of the traits, the fit, and Joe Burrow actually he can move. So the difference, you can't deny Joe Burrow.
And he can throw off any platform. He can throw off any platform, which is not something Mac Jones is elite at. He was a high school basketball star, Joe Burrow was. And the other thing with Burrow, I think, is
his highlights are him on the move, throwing down the field.
Right. I mean, Joe Burrow makes so many Mahomes. He made Mahomes type plays without having Mahomes' arm because there were so many times that he just ran out of the pocket and created something out of nothing. So that's one thing.
Also, Burrow was ready to go. Burrow started 28 games in college. Mac Jones, if he starts right away, his inexperience is going to show. I'm telling you.
For me, probably the biggest difference is, I think people throw out accuracy a lot. I think there's some guys who are accurate quarterbacks, some guys who aren't. Mac Jones is clearly an accurate quarterback, but there's a difference between the accuracy Mac Jones has and the accuracy Joe Burrow had when he came out of college. This was like Drew Brees level precision and accuracy. There were games where I even if he was like 21 for 28, he probably didn't miss a throw in that game. Every throw was exactly where his guy could have caught it, and every throw had the right amount of pace, everything. So to me, this was just different.
Last Second Sports says, Vish, what's your Cash App? This is the official GoFundMe to upgrade your StreamYard. Hey, well, maybe if he gets enough subscribers and donations, he can kick it up to the mid grade.
Yeah,
you can tell he's on the starter version with that.
Grant exposing me here. Grant, last second.
That's kind of funny.
So, anybody else? You see any other questions here, Grant?
We are in front of any in Washington every round. How do you leverage that for guys like Big Matt and Trask?
I don't think Washington goes the rookie quarterback route because I think they look at where the NFC East is with the Giants being their only real competition. I mean, Philly's a mess. Philly is an absolute mess, and the Cowboys are being stupid with their quarterback situation when they have by far the best quarterback in their division by not getting a deal done with Dak Prescott. So this is really Washington's window to string together 2 or 3 playoff seasons. I don't think they'll kind of risk it by trying it with Mac Jones or trying it with Kyle Trask. I think they end up going and getting some sort of veteran. They make some sort of veteran play at quarterback. So with New England, I don't see them taking Mac Jones or Kyle Trask just because I look at it from the standpoint of every time I want to say this is that for whatever reason, they're still very high on Jarrett Stidham. The reports from all the New England insiders was that they were willing to start Jarrett Stidham. And when you're talking from a physical perspective, to me, Jarrett Stidham is a more gifted thrower than both Mac Jones and Kyle Trask. He had some.
Yeah, Stidham is a cannon.
Yeah, he can really throw the ball, and he's athletic too. So
I like Stidham.
So to me, if you're the Patriots and you're from their perspective, unless they did a total 180 on their opinion of Stidham, if they've had 2 years of Jarrett Stidham in their system, they got to feel more comfortable with his prospects than taking one of these guys in the second or third round. I think New England will settle once again, or in the second round. I think New England will settle once again for a third or fourth round random quarterback. I think Davis Mills is a guy to look for New England. I think he makes sense for them.
I think Kellen Mond is the guy they're going to look at because what I've seen from Josh McDaniel is he's dying to have a mobile quarterback. I mean, he did work with Brady for all those years, and that built his reputation. But the first thing he did at Denver, or the second thing, was draft Tebow. And then when he comes back, the first thing they do to replace Tom Brady is draft Cam freaking Newton. And you've heard that they've been a little linked, or maybe there's been speculation that they might be interested in Marcus Mariota. I think he wants to have the mobile element in his offense. I think he wants to do a lot of the stuff that Sean Payton does with Taysom Hill, a lot of that quarterback-driven stuff in the run game. I think Kellen Mond he's really good on the short stuff over the middle. They might take Kellen Mond. And if the Niners, so to your question, Adam, if the Niners swoop him if that's the ace up the Patriots' sleeve and the Niners get him first, maybe the Niners can leverage a little Jimmy G trade back to New England.
Those are two great points to me. Especially the one with Josh McDaniels wanting a mobile quarterback and all of that. And I think Mond, the other thing to look at is who did Belichick learn from? He was Bill Parcells. Bill Parcells was really his mentor in the NFL. And the one thing with Kellen Mond is, I'm going to let you Google it because I don't know it off the top of my head, but Bill Parcells has a criteria before every draft that every quarterback has to check off, and they have to check it off before they do it. And Kellen Mond checks every single one of those.
He doesn't. He actually doesn't. There's one he doesn't, and it's close. He doesn't check off the accuracy. He doesn't. Let me real quick. I'll go through it. It's 30 starts, 23 wins, senior, graduated. I think it's a captain. I don't think he was a captain either. And a 60% completion percentage. He was 59. So he's borderline. Now, he did complete over 60% his last 2 years and improved every year, but the totality was
okay. 50%. Okay, well, then that changes my entire thought process on it. But I think that would be something to look at.
Yeah, just because he's a mid-round guy who has the mobility I think they're looking for. Wow. Okay, answer those questions.
Yeah, so
dang, dude.
With the NFL evolving over 15, 20 years to increase points scoring, has made the quarterback the most important. Will this kill the NFL? I don't ever see another Trent Dilfer. I don't know if that quarterback will ever look like Trent Dilfer, but that could be a similar level player of Trent Dilfer. I mean, the Niners nearly won it with Jimmy Garoppolo, who's better than Trent Dilfer.
Bulls won the Super Bowl.
It's because their numbers are all automatically going to look better because if that guy is going to the Super Bowl, winning to the Super Bowl, he's propped up by a phenomenal system that's giving him numbers. Like, it's schemed up to have those kinds of numbers. I don't know. I think the reality is that we'll see one or two in 20 years like that. But I think for the most part, you're going to see elite quarterbacks winning Super Bowls. And the most important thing to look at for me with this is that even if the guy is not an elite player, he's going to have to be playing at an elite level to win a Super Bowl. So the guys that didn't win that won in the 2010s, besides Peyton Manning, everybody was playing at an elite level through the playoffs in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and the thing about Trent Dilfer, I think the landscape of football in the country has changed. Like back when Trent Dilfer won the Super Bowl, there weren't that many good quarterbacks in the country. There were like 10 good quarterbacks in the league. Now, I think what's happened is almost every team has a serviceable starting quarterback. There are good quarterbacks that are backups. I mean, Marcus Mariota's a backup. Jameis Winston's a backup. Like, it's easier than ever to find an average to competent starter. And they're cheap.
And the true test of whether a quarterback busts to me is no longer year 1 to year 3. It's year 5, year 6, year 7. We're seeing it with Carson Wentz, Jared Goff, Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota, because teams have learned that you have to prop up the quarterback situation immediately. So they're doing that for these quarterbacks, and they immediately look good, and you think you found something. And it's the moment where the situation starts to get worse and all of that.
Two things happen. When they get money, the supporting cast deteriorates, and the big thing, the book is out on you. The league has figured out what they want to do, what the best way to attack you is. And the best quarterbacks can defeat the book on them. And I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo has yet. The book on him is to take away the middle of the field, basically play cover one robber. And that is basically checkmate for Jimmy. What Jimmy needs is a run game, play out. He needs deception, because once he's in a situation where it's dropped back, it's like, dude, you're gonna have to throw outside the numbers now. So I think that's a big thing too. Can you defeat the collective wisdom of defensive coordinators in the world? If you can, then you're great.
Which, just one more thing on Jimmy. I wanted to touch on this because you made
we weren't supposed to talk about him today. My bad.
Well, I did want to touch on this one. It's just a weird drop off because when he first came to the Niners, he was way more suited to just the drop back pass game than he was to play action. He really struggled actually in play action. If you look at his number splits when he first came to the Niners, just something.
He's a shotgun guy.
Yeah, and so, yeah, he's interesting from that standpoint.
But again, if he needs play action, helps people get open. It just does. So if he's, he needs it at this point. Anyway,
right. Thoughts on Grant? So this will probably be our last question because Grant needs to go. Again, appreciate all of you for sticking around. We'll be back on Grant's channel at Grant. Subscribe next week. This was just a one-off thing. We really appreciate all of you.
Make sure you subscribe to Vish's. The whole point is to get people who haven't subscribed to Vish's channel yet to subscribe because it's overdue. What are you doing? It's the best YouTube channel on YouTube. No, subscribe to Vish right now.
So here we go.
Oh, snap.
Oh, all right. We'll hit Jamal too then because Jamal is an OG. Jamal is, if you don't know, we've had streams where Blake and I have like 4 or 5 people, and Jamal will be in there just supporting us, asking questions. We're going to bring Jamal on.
Good taste.
So Jamal is fantastic.
Yeah.
So thoughts on Grant trading for Jacob Eason? Grant's take on trading a 5th for Jacob Eason. Also thoughts on drafting Davis Mills. To me, they're kind of similar, right? I haven't watched too much of Davis Mills. From what I've seen, he's kind of Jacob Eason, where he's got an NFL arm but doesn't really move.
Yeah, I kind of like Mills, and what I heard is people in the league kind of like him too. He's intriguing. They're both like toolsy projects. And I like the toolsy project you can get on day 4, not the toolsy project you got to trade up to the 2nd pick to take. That's like I keep going.
My big question with Eason, though, is I think Eason is Goff in the sense that I don't think Eason can function within a muddy pocket. But I think if Eason perfect protection and just define him, this is where you need to throw the ball. He can rip it. Oh
my God, he can rip it. I don't know. I mean, he's probably going to be one of these guys who falls through the cracks, but he was like the #1 dude coming out of high school. He really does have talent. You could get him for nothing. If you had him and Josh Rosen on the team, you'd have 2 of the more talented guys that came out of high school in the last 10 years. They're still fairly young. Kyle, you're a genius, man. I think you can make it work. I mean, maybe not most coaches, but a coach like you, I think you could do. I don't know. 5th round pick for him would be interesting. I'd be interested. I liked him last year. I felt that he had more upside than Jordan Love. I looked at Jordan Love's resume. He looked like a 1-year wonder at a small school. He had 1 good year at Utah State. The 2nd year that he was at Utah State wasn't good, and he had a lot of excuses. Fine. Jacob Eason was a freshman starter at Georgia and won big game. He had a winning record as a freshman in Georgia. Now, it's a really good team. Still, I mean, he's at least as physically gifted with his arm. Doesn't move as well as Jordan Love, but his resume was more impressive. I liked him. That was the sleeper.
It's the latter that I wanted to point out. So in terms of arm strength, they're actually pretty similar because Jordan Love has a cannon and Jacob Eason has a cannon. But I think Jordan Love brings a little more creativity and a little more off-platform, on-the-move stuff, which is essential.
Yeah. But again, if you would put Jacob Eason at Utah State, he would have been really, really, really good. So that's the thing with these small school places. Like you still have, I think, a really important exercise in scouting quarterbacks to take it to the next level is the visualization. Yes, you watch the tape. You watch it all. But you got to try to visualize, okay, what would Justin Herbert look like at Alabama? Because that actually gets you to closer to the truth of what it's going to be for him in the NFL. Like, what would Herbert look like on an NFL team? What would Herbert look like? What would Kellen Mond look like at Ohio State? What would Justin Fields look like at Texas A&M? Those are you don't know for sure, but you got to try. You got to try.
Last question from Jamal right here. In 3 years, how do you think we view the top 3 QBs in this class? Lawrence, Fields, and Wilson. So, all right. So here's what I'll say about Lawrence. I think Lawrence, I'm pretty confident from day one is going to be a top 15 quarterback in the NFL. Now, I don't know how high he's going to be 3 years from now. I don't know if he's going to be top 5. I don't know if he's going to be top 7. I don't know if he's going to be top 10. But I know he's always going to be in the top 15, which in today's NFL, the top 15 is the new top 10 because that's how many good quarterbacks there are.
I think he'll be just as good as Herbert. Like, that's the baseline to me. And Herbert's already a hell of a quarterback. So
yeah. Fields
was he the rookie of the year?
Yeah, of course he
Yeah,
was.
yeah, of course he was. So
Fields,
he's gonna be that good.
Fields and Wilson to me are a little more
He
of
said
the.
Lance. Oh.
I gotta see where they go. For me, I think that's going to be really important. But I think both Fields and Wilson have a really good shot if they go to the right places to be right there with Lawrence. And maybe I think Fields, like you said, might be the more gifted player even than Lawrence. Where if he goes to the right place, he might be a guy in the top 5 quarterbacks. I'm not sure if Lawrence would reach that point, especially when you start naming names. Like he's not more physically gifted than Herbert, Josh Allen, Deshaun, um, uh, Patrick Mahomes, obviously. So I think that I would say that it all for Fields and Wilson, it depends on circumstance, but I could definitely see both of them being right there.
I'll put it this way, which I'm betting on whichever one doesn't get taken by the Jets. Whichever one gets taken by the Jets, I feel bad for. Not because I just nothing against Salah. It's the team. I mean, it's terrible. There's no weapons there. Look at Sam Darnold. All the excuses people make for Sam Darnold, they're legit. And then also like Mike LaFleur, I don't know what he's going to do. I mean, he's never done this before. So, yeah, I feel bad for whoever gets drafted by the Jets. And it's interesting right now. It seems like Justin Fields is getting the brunt of the scrutiny. Everyone's looking at him. He's a one-read quarterback. He's not this. He's not that. So that's all of a sudden like Zach Wilson is sneaking into the number 2 spot. Just wait until people start scrutinizing Zach Wilson, man. I still think Justin Fields is going to get drafted back. It's just that Fields is getting it first. He's getting it first.
The difference, the really big difference is that if Fields is going through the Josh Rosen treatment, if you remember, Josh Rosen was the heavily scrutinized quarterback before that draft. And now Josh Fields, I'm not comparing them as players or in terms of personality. The big thing for Rosen, and it's happening to Fields, is that they were like the best quarterback in their class or considered like that since their sophomore year of high school. So NFL people have been scouting and have been aware of them since then. And when you scout, it just becomes exhausting. And that's what's happened to them. In Wilson's case, he's new. Right. He's jumped onto the scene. He's still a little green. So I think he's
so here it's interesting that you compare Fields to Rosen, because let's take this to the logical end. What he's saying is, where's he going to be in 3 years? Let's say Fields drops in the draft the way Rosen did, the way Rodgers did, because of just like over-analysis, right? Basically, you're saying over-analysis. And he goes, let's say he goes, I don't know, 10, 11, 12 to some team, and it doesn't work out. Now he's in Rosen's position. Now people could be, well, you know, we had questions about you. It didn't work out. He could wash out of the league like Dwayne Haskins. Well, not like Cardale Jones did. I'm not saying he will, but I think that's actually on the table for a guy who dropped. Because look at Josh Rosen. If people have the questions and he drops to 10 and it doesn't work out right away, the questions will only mount, and you won't get the benefit of the doubt the way number 3 pick Sam Darnold did, who burst onto the scene in 2016 and all this stuff, you know?
Yeah. So I think that's a great place to stop. Grant, thank you so much for coming on. Again, we'll be back on @GrantCohn's YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe there. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, all of you, so much for the donations. Blake and I really appreciate it. We'll be live back on Wednesday or Thursday, and we got Eric Crocker coming on Saturday, so a lot of good stuff coming. Thank you.